Welcome to Creative Cooking. Today we're going to make a Mediterranean-style couscous salad, and we'll start off making the couscous. Unlike pasta, a couscous, the way you cook a couscous is like cooking rice. You use a pre-measured amount of water and a pre-measured amount of dry ingredients, and the dry ingredients will absorb all of the liquid in the pan. So we add our water, our butter, and some salt, and we'll measure out 2 cups of couscous. And this is the pearl couscous, meaning it's the large couscous, and it just happens to be the tri-colored couscous, right? It has different colors, and it's perfect for making these types of salads. You just have to give it a mix, put the cover on, and let that simmer for about 10 minutes, and then let it stand for another 5 or 10. Then you transfer that to your mixing bowl and spread it out so it cools off faster while we prepare the vegetables. That's simple. We have red and green bell peppers that we'll cut to a certain size, 1 of each. 4 cloves of garlic that will be finely minced. I have parsley. And we have these grape tomatoes. These are not cherry tomatoes, they're grape tomatoes, but you can use the cherry. And on the smaller ones, you just cut them in half. On the larger ones, cut them in 3. And I want to make a note that you'll want to squeeze out the seeds. It won't take you very long, and it's worth the effort. And we're going to use some Kalamata olives. They're soaked in a brine, so they're a little bit salty, and they're delicious. Now here's the secret to the way I make these kinds of salads. I don't put the vegetables in raw. Get a pan nice and hot and add a generous amount of olive oil. And then we'll put the vegetables in. We want to cook them over high heat. The idea is for them to blister and take on like a roasted pepper flavor, if you know what I mean. We're going to eliminate some of the moisture, and we're also going to soften them up just a little. They'll still be crispy, because we're only going to do this for about 30 seconds, 45 seconds. Same with the garlic. Throw that in at the end, mix it around, and remove it from the heat. And all of this is going to do 2 things. One, it's going to take the raw edge off the vegetables, and it's going to flavor that oil, and that oil will permeate the entire salad. So now that everything's cooled off, we just start mixing things up, right? I'm going to take all those beautiful peppers and garlic and that flavored oil, dump that right on top, along with all the other vegetables that we prepared. You know, our grape tomatoes. Right? See how they've been de-seeded? I pulled most of the seeds and the liquid out. Our olives, definitely some fresh parsley, and we're going to use a whole container of this feta cheese. Feta cheese is a classic ingredient in Mediterranean cooking. And to give it a little more sharpness, I have some freshly grated Parmesan Reggiano. And we'll go ahead and, oh, wait a minute, I forgot the beans. These are cannellini beans. And a lot of times when I make a salad like this, I'll use chickpeas, but I didn't have any, so I'm using cannellinis, and they work out really well. So give that a little mix. Okay, we want to make sure that everything combines well in that bowl, and then we'll get started on making the dressing. And that is, for all intents and purposes, a balsamic vinaigrette. Okay, so we're going to use some olive oil. That's about 1/3 cup of extra virgin olive oil, roughly 2 tablespoons or a little bit less of the balsamic vinegar. I didn't want to use all balsamic, so I cut it with some white wine vinegar. And the reason for this is that balsamic vinegar is very sweet. It also doesn't hurt to add some Italian herbs to this. This is a pre-mixed Italian herb blend, which has some basil, some parsley, oregano, and thyme, to mention a few. So I only put in about a teaspoon or a little bit less, and you could add salt at this point too, but I didn't. And I also like to put in fine red pepper flakes. Just a little bit of heat, but you won't really notice it, but it's there. And since we're making a vinaigrette, we might as well add some Dijon mustard, which is kind of a standard ingredient for most of these vinaigrette dressings. And just give it a good whisking. You don't have to go too crazy with it, it'll emulsify. And then pour it over the salad. And then just give it a good little mix. But we're not done yet. There's a couple of more things you might want to consider when putting this salad together. I mean, have you considered putting on some salami or some pepperoni? I ended up having pepperoni. I didn't have salami, but I had pepperoni, and I put some in. It adds a little bit of flavor. But if you're trying to keep this vegetarian, you can leave the meat out. And as an afterthought, I put in some of my pickled red onions. I just made a video on that about a week ago. You can go check that out if you like, how to make them. It's very simple. It's a very short video. So this was a great recipe, great for picnics, and I hope you enjoyed it. And I also hope that you come back each week for more great videos made for people who like to cook. Until then, bon appetit.